Morning.
Okay, good morning. The May 9th Board of Directors meeting is called to order. We do have quorum? Yes, we have quorum. Okay, first I'd like to ask our interpreters to explain how to access interpretation. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Announcement from the interpreter to the interpretation feature. Please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon row and select English as your language. If you're joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish low in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you are in the meeting room, please check out the headsets from the receptionist in the lobby. Aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, globo terráqueo y seleccione Spanish, español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor, seleccione Mute Original Audio. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. The tribal nations of the San Diego region have historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples, who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States. From our 4 cultural groups, the Kumeyaay Digueño, the Luceño, the Cupeño, and the Cahuilla. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from Indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. Now, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's begin with non-agenda public comments. Francesca.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, I'd like to note we have a quorum this morning, and the absent voting jurisdictions are the City of La Mesa and the County of San Diego. As a reminder, no comments shall use loud, threatening, profane, or abusive language that disrupts the orderly conduct of the meeting. Disorderly conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the board meeting is prohibited. Per our board policy, the amount of time allowed for each verbal comment is determined based on the number of agenda items, the complexity of those items, and the number of persons anticipated to offer comment. This allows us to hear from as many people as possible and to complete our business while we still have a quorum. Based on those factors, the chair has determined that today each member of the public will be allowed 2 minutes for their comments. We will start with Truth, and after Truth will be allegedly Audra.
I like the color of the Bike Anywhere Day shirts. Make sure David Zito gets one. SANDAG failed to provide a shuttle to carpool everyone to the retreat. One historic mayor informed me that has actually been done by SANDAG in the past, so do it again. Mario, please ensure that there are 2 simultaneous grand openings for the Border to Bayshore project. SANDAG has continued to have a border bias looking toward Mexico. Nobody's going to care if there's an opening at the border, but many will be furious if the Bayshore, aka Imperial Beach, is ignored by SANDAG when they have sacrificed streets for this expensive project. If donations are required to make it happen, please inform IB of that so they can help. Now here's the county's 1994 Otay Mesa East Pacific Plan, quote, with the growth of the Mexican government's maquiladora or twin plant program in the early 1980s, along with relatively low land costs and affordable labor supply, combined with favorable tariffs with Mexico, the demand for industrial land accelerated in the U.S. to accommodate the distribution and warehousing of products manufactured in Mexico. The opening of the Otay Mesa border crossing and State Route 905 enhanced development in the area. SANDAG is currently refining the transit network for the South Bay. Policy C-16, support a future international border crossing in East Otay Mesa, planned as a new freeway/toll facility, end quote. Enhanced development, that means pollution. There's nothing about sewage from Mexico being incentivized and increased. There's also nothing in there about Mexico getting a cut of any toll money. Let's be real, SANDAG is using that 50% of Mexico's unearned toll cut as a bribe to keep the primary toll readers in their country because it's not legal for SANDAG to have them here. That's why this is the SANDAG sewage crisis. A prominent IB resident even asked, will Imperial Beach become another Barrio Logan? Mexico's where most of the smog-ridden GHGs are coming from in California, so I demand that SANDAG sign on to the pollution solutions offered up by the city of Imperial Beach on April 2nd, which includes limiting crossings to any degree necessary to achieve all levels of state and federal environmental compliance. That means treatment plants and cars. No more excuses. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be allegedly Audra, followed by Purita Javier.
It's funny to see you guys sit up and stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance, coming from people that are trying to destroy America. One nation under God, right? Is that why we're removing God from everything? And like, we're a republic, but we call it a democracy, right? I mean, it's just the motions of going through it. Since we were kids, we just get up and we put our hand over our heart and we say these words. But none of you really embody that or mean it. That's why I don't stand up with you guys, because it's all a facade. And it's sad because it's like America is being destroyed little by little, like whittling away at it. And people are suffering, and it's like we can't even have representative from the county of San Diego show up ever. I mean, sometimes Joel does. Maybe he's not hungry today. I don't know. But then we also have things like that what's happening in your cities, like the sexualization of children. And I'm going to just bring this up until it actually stops, because I have all of you at one table and you guys are doing things in your cities that's an embarrassment to humanity and a disservice to children, especially like Esther and all of you guys who have your pride flags up that are supporting pedophilia. That's what you're doing. You're glorifying pedophilia and saying we want all people to feel safe. All people. Like, just the lip service that you guys give people is insanity. And Rebecca, like, whatever happened to, you know, my friend getting justice for being hit, when you guys have your ALPR, it's like there's a bunch of fraud, waste, and abuse. And you can't even, like, make sure that if somebody gets hit in your city, that there's justice that comes. It's like, I'll just send it to the sheriff, and then they'll just not look at the ALPR and tell her there's nothing we can do. Right? Why are we paying for all of this stuff? Like, it's really sad to see the condition of the county, the state, and all the things that you guys have done that have led to the defunding from the federal government. And then you want to be like, oh my gosh, it's the federal government. No, it's you guys. And you guys need to course correct.
Our next speaker will be Purita Javier, followed by Cesar Javier.
We were hurt. And up to this day, we haven't had a relief, not even a sign of hope, but merely palliative. They hear us perhaps since, but nothing has been done to address the root causes. Code Rule 11, which exempt 20 manufacturing, industrial, economics activities, one of them ceramics kiln. Number 2, city implementation of the rule, even if it's hazardous one. Number 3, applicant honor a graduate of ceramics class in Mesa College whose land use was self-certified. 20 manufacturing and industrial activities benefiting 50,000 jobs region-wide looks fictitious. 20 economics activities, which of some create a hotspot in air pollution, air contaminants, particulates, and toxicities. For example of 40 artists, members of San Diego Pottery Guild, how many of these members are on safe site? Since they are exempt, location, construction, and operation are free from number 1 permits.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Our next speaker will be Cesar Javier, followed by Paul the Bold.
Only blame ourselves and the city lawful authorities, beginning from the mayor and the 9 councilors led by Councilor Luqadda now. 9 councilors, thinking mammals, and 1 attorney to cover up what is now going on as San Diego City virus. Look at their propaganda. Operating Budget Excellence Award. Where is the money, Councilor Luqadda? We still have those homeless, sick, and dying people in front of the Civic Center. And this is what you are putting? This is not the City Hall. Anyone has visited our City Hall today, yesterday? Political virus. And our logo now is urine polluted Civic Center. Correct, Councilor Luqadda? Correct, Councilor Rivera? Starring Mayor Gloria, the mystic smile. People are dying, lying. Tijuana River pollution, District 8, what have you done? Have you supervised in the distribution of this palliative? Dr. Campbell, another infected virus, a doctor in the city of San Diego who knows what is bad gas and oxygen. What is happening? Priority is not even on shelter. Priority is not even to cure, hospitalize, and feed the victims of air pollution, land pollution, water pollution, coastal pollution. Where is your 5th grade lessons? Madam Chair, please listen.
Thank you very much. Your time has expired. Our next speaker will be Paul the Bold, followed by Consuelo.
Hi, Paul the Bold here. Time to get back to basics. You are a transportation agency. There is really no excuse for the state of transportation in this county. Unpaved and deteriorating roads that get people nowhere, evacuation routes that won't get you out quickly, train routes that are going to be eroded away despite the millions you're spending. That's millions of our dollars. Bikeway safety improvements, which do not increase safety. 10 years of bus drivers having to use the porta potties on their breaks downtown instead of actually renting a decent building. But you'd rather get your teeth on other projects multiple agencies are already working and failing at, mainly because they are multiple agencies and jealously guard their own jurisdictions, like the TJ River Valley and the homeless and affordable housing. And you send us outdated data used by the county, and all that hasn't been updated with even a best guess. I'm glad the budget's better now, a bit better, but you gotta stop using us as a piggy bank and wasting our money. And by the way, the reason I don't repeat the pledge is that I did it once and I don't intend to change my mind. Thanks. Now you have a few minutes more, I guess, since I didn't use my whole time. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Consuelo, followed by Blair Beekman, and Blair will be our final commenter.
Paul, you are the epitome of mensch, man. You're freaking awesome. Anyways, so will Imperial Beach become another Barrio Logan? Hate to break it to that prominent Imperial Beach resident, but it's already a Barrio Logan with a smelly beachfront property. And I'm going to act sustainable and repeat my speech from April. Here we go. I want to reach out to encourage you all to do your best to participate and start paying close attention to our county board meetings, and especially SANDAG meetings, where much of the fraud, waste, and abuse occurs. SANDAG has got their nose into everything. It's supposed to be transparent. It's supposed to be a transportation agency, but over the years, they've usurped and have gotten into the other functions other areas, mainly building and housing. And just like every board in our county, from school to water authorities, they too have become sloppy, reckless, and unreliable with their operations. Just because SANDAG now sits in a fresh new office on a fault doesn't mean it's changed its dirty, corrupt ways. It is up to the people to really start monitoring and holding them accountable for their bad decisions, like being beyond irresponsible with our tax dollars. To the members serving on the board, reminder, if your presence in office is not elevating your community and constituents, then what exactly are you even in office for? If you don't listen to the ones whom you supposedly represent, though most of you may be unaware of this, this system is collapsing. There are way too many who are suffering in our county and in our world, and at the hands of this abusive, corrupt government, local and federal. That's what I wrote. Be freaking Friday.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Blair Beekman, and after Blair will be Gambler, who will be our last speaker.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Thanks for the meeting today. Try to keep my words short. A really good housing item at the executive committee today. A really good report from someone from the League of California Cities. Yeah, it was. I learned the idea of how to give a very fair, balanced report of how to talk about the future of housing that tries to serve middle income needs. Also, I think that was he tried to do that as well. Yet it was really balanced how he tried to talk about it. So I was really interested how it was presented and what was talked about from all sides at the meeting today. And it was just it was really. Everyone had a good point, so thank you. Yeah, worth checking out. I also wanted to note that just a thank you to the efforts and words of DRA, who she works really hard on issues, and I'm understanding how to bring in some of her words into a sense of real practices that could be applicable. You know, she talks about child trafficking issues, kids coming over the border. I know the city of San Diego, they want to redevelop the future of their immigration office at some point in history. They've kind of gotten confused at this point. Having child trafficking, fair wage, and living wage issues, I think, and wage theft issues, I think can be really important ways the city of San Diego can work on the future of, you know, their immigration policies. I think they need to have that, and we really do need to be looking for child trafficking issues and what we can do at the local level to help address that. I think it can be a really good subject to address, and I think it's applicable. AOPR issues, San Jose is really working on how victims of crime can have AOPR information. Check them out for that sort of information too.
Thank you. Our final speaker will be Gambler. You can go ahead.
Hi, my name is Gambler. I could go ahead and point this out and explain to every single person why they don't really listen to us. They understand that voter fraud is possible. Matter of fact, organizations do this. How do they do this? You want to go ahead and ask. Well, in order to bypass the red flags, you have to find someone who has voted. They have already provided their ID to the registrar, proving that they are a person. The ACLU made sure once that happened, no matter what, their ballot, their name will never remove off of their voter rolls, which means if they stop voting, anyone could go ahead and fill out a basic registration form, fill it out, change the signature to a wavy line so that you could remember it and vote it. By telling you this in a public fashion, I am basically instructing everyone how to commit voter fraud. By you guys, the elected officials, if you plan to go to the run for the next office, you know how to commit voter fraud without being detected. Just make sure that the person isn't dead, because ACLU could not keep those people on the voter roll. And you are able to go ahead and identify those and say that they should not be on there. Everyone else? Yeah, no, if you don't actually vote, anyone could steal your ballot. I am letting you know that. Organizations, DNC, RNC, ACLU, they all steal people who don't vote typically ballot, especially homeless. They could funnel thousands upon thousands of ballots through the homeless facility. So everyone, that is how you.
Thank you. Your time has expired. That concludes the public comments.
Very good. We're on to non-agenda member comments, and Fox from Caltrans.
Hi, good morning. This week, after more than 35 years of service to the people of California, our Caltrans director, Tony Tavares, will be stepping away from his role at Caltrans. We are certainly grateful for his dedication and leadership throughout his career. We will have more info to come on who will be our interim director. Soon as we know, you guys can know. So more info on that to come. Next, May 19th, we will be releasing the State Route 78 draft environmental document. Actually, this is a 78 15 managed lanes connectors draft environmental document for public comment. This public comment period will be for 45 days. We'll also be hosting a public meeting on June 5th at our district office for this draft ED. Additionally, looking ahead this summer, we will begin nearly $500 million worth of work spanning the entire county for the next couple of years. You'll see work on the 78 from Oceanside to Escondido, Interstate 5 from 805 to I-8, and on 805 essentially from the Mexico border up to the merge with I-5. This is a major investment to refresh pavement, replace signs, upgrade our intelligent transportation systems, and much, much more. This asset management work preserves existing infrastructure, improves safety, and modernizes our corridors to meet current and future transportation needs. With this, however, investments usually mean there will be some inconvenience in your travels, but we'll be sure to communicate out any closures, detours, et cetera. So again, please bring your patience as you travel through these corridors. With that, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. From the Airport Authority, Gil Cabrera.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to highlight that yesterday I had the honor of helping celebrate our newest route from San Diego direct to Amsterdam on KLM. That is, they are starting with 3 flights a week, and then at Schiphol in Amsterdam, you can connect to well over 100 other destinations in Europe and beyond. So it gives you a another one-stop option in Europe. Schiphol is also one of these airports where it's basically one terminal, so you can remarkably make a connection within 50 minutes. So it's a pretty quick international transition. I wanted to highlight this in particularly because this is one of those examples of regional cooperation and collaboration. 3.5 years ago, our trade delegation was in the Netherlands, and my job, along with my team, was to pitch this route to KLM. And we pitched it. It was well received, and after 3.5 years, we were finally able to get it here. And so we're very hopeful that it'll be successful and another option for San Diegans. We now have 3 direct routes to Europe and 10 international routes altogether. So we're continuing. We have got one more coming on next month, which I'll let you know about then. Thanks.
Thanks. My best friend's taking that next week. It's exciting. Mayor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to bring up, and I did bring this up in executive, and that is that I would like to discuss at this board converting 2 of our current advisory seats to become regular voting seats. One of them being something we've been talking about for a while, and that is our county planning groups. So here again, have no representation, 500,000 people, much more than many of our cities. And then also, I think that our tribal communities need to have a voice as well, converting them from a non-voting member to a voting member. So those would be my suggestions. I just think that we need better representation for our outlying areas that are maybe not having their needs met. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And that will be going to executive committee as time allows. Very good. So I wanted to thank everybody who was able to join us at the retreat for coming. And it was a really good opportunity to get together, to speak about the work that we do, and to reflect upon our shared priorities. So for those of you who couldn't come because it was kind of short notice in the world of our crazy numbers of appointments and meetings that we have, if you take out your phone right now and scroll to March of 2026, March 19th and 20th of 2026 will be next year's Board of Directors retreat. So there'll be no excuses for you not coming next year. All right, put it in there in ink and if whatever it is in bold in your phone. All right, as a quick reminder, Bike Anywhere Day is coming up next Thursday, May 15th. If you're planning to participate, please let staff know so they can help you to coordinate logistics. And right now I'm going to turn it over to Mario for his update.
Thank you, Chair. This week, we held Cal Mentors graduations. This Wednesday, it was the 10th cycle of the program. It was led by Caltrans and SANDAG. Really appreciate that partnership. But the Cal Mentor is the opportunity for small businesses to be mentored by mid and large companies and size firms. There were 15 product-shaped firms that graduated through this cycle. The goal is to increase the participation of small businesses in the public transportation sector. Also this week, it was yesterday that we had a microtransit joint working group. This is very important. We exchanged experiences from different areas. we were joined by the Kansas City Area of Transportation Authority, LA Metro, City of Torrance, and Dallas Area Rapid Transit. The last mile is very important, and we have heard very, very clear from all of you of how we should be focusing in this subject. Flexible Fleets Grant Program call for projects will come to this board later this summer. So we will be putting out the request for projects, and then eventually the board will be deciding on it. On a couple of follow-up items, we're still working on the downtown stopover and getting that revamping of it that you asked us to do. So we should be coming shortly with that. That is a priority of us to get it done as soon as possible. Again, like the chair said, thank you for those who participated in the retreat, and I can't stop to highlight staff, all their work they did to accommodate everybody there and to be able to have a very good conversation, a reality check of what we're going to be discussing and what we've said today. We're talking about the budget, but we have said that this budget is just the beginning of the conversation, and we will be coming with different amendments based on the priorities that this board discusses. I also want to highlight on different updates. We have the back office system transition. As you know, we have been going through the testing and the transition of the data. We're working through several issues that have arisen, which is good. That's why we want to get them. We need to identify those issues. But it looks likely that we will need a little bit more time to go live on this system. It has come to my attention on Elvira to Morena on the Lausanne alignment that we have, some of you may be familiar with this double track project that was done a couple of years ago. We have learned that we may have some additional stabilization work that needs to be dealt with. The team is looking into this together with our partners and the operators, and we will be communicating as information comes our way. I also want to highlight some very good news. A couple of months ago, I don't know if it was myself or our chief financial officer that notified the board that we were going through an IRS audit for our 2010 Build America bonds. IRS has gotten back to us. The audit is complete. No changes or recommendations have been come out. So basically, this was a clean audit. So that's very good news. We're keep checking the box on the multiple issues that have been arising. Let it be investigations, let it be audits, or whatever else. Also, the more project updates, the Baja California Border Resiliency Interagency Task Force met last week for the first time, for the first task force meeting. What is this? This is what we had discussed before as a climate action or an environmental master plan for the border. As it has been discussed, there's a lot of efforts dealing, for example, with the Tijuana River issue right now, but we also need to be looking not just on solving the issue today, but looking at a longer term. So we really appreciate there was very large participation for both sides of the border on very good conversations, setting the foundations of the conversations. The sponsors on this side are Caltrans, the Southern California Association of Governments, SCAG, ourselves here at SANDAG, and on the Mexican side is the state of Baja California with the cities also that encompasses the border. So I just wanted to highlight that. I also want to bring up that Bike to Anywhere Day officially, less than 1 week away from Bike Anywhere Day. It will be May 15. We have nearly 4,000 participants registered. Most of the entities have registered, or the cities as pit stops. We really appreciate that. So we really are highlighting that. If you haven't registered for it, go ahead and do it. Next week, I'll be going to the California Transportation Commission for several items that will be being discussed. Among them, the Otay Mesa East infra funding, as well as other active transportation projects. While I'm at the CTC in San Francisco, we will be engaging and having a conversation with Coastal Commission and building those bridges. There's several important subjects that we need to discuss with the Coastal Commission, some of them on the Lausanne realignment, but also on the mitigation that was requested for us for access to the beach when we were doing the Del Mar Bluffs stabilization. So we will be talking to that later on. And this month is going to be a very hectic month. As Anne mentioned, the draft for the environmental document of 1578 will be released. That's a huge, huge milestone. But we're also going to be releasing the notice of preparation for the Lausanne realignment. We're also going to be releasing the draft regional plan. So there's going to be a lot of work that the team have been developing that we'll be putting out during this month for the different reviews and the public to provide us comments. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Mario. All right, we'll move on to consent. Francesca, do we have any public comments on the consent agenda? And a reminder, if you're speaking on it, please make sure you tell us what item you're speaking up on.
Thank you, Chair. We have 5 public speakers on this item. We'll start with Truth and then go to allegedly Audra.
Item 2, is it true that Esther and Joe were absent? Item 3, Joe's April 6 to 9 trip. Who were the mystery other community members? And what does binational coordination include? Is that the same thing as holding Mexico accountable for their environmental terrorism, consisting of an average of 25 million gallons of raw sewage hitting our country every day? Or was it just about giving them 50% of our tax dollars to keep enabling the problem as well as the cartel? Item 4, why does this item assume that the executive committee approved the 3 different draft agendas as well as taken a support position on AB 650? Is SANDAG allowed to assume data and positions of board members? Wasn't this type of behavior clarified by Mario at the board retreat? And during the meeting, Lisa failed to be concise. The entire legislative report was also not included in this item, so I'm going to summarize. SB 35 and SB 423 are pervert wieners work. One of those crazy system Democrats that absent for the 1,000th time Joel admitted to working with. Some of you have to admit that you've been on a side that's been killing this state. It is not a housing crisis, it is a political crisis. Change all the bad pro-corporate developer, anti-single family housing policies so people don't have to keep leaving this state in mass exodus. If some of you would treat those crazy policies like the way to vote and walk out on your own worthless party, maybe things would change for the better, Mario. And there was zero discussion on SB 10, which was the typical lack of transparency from SANDAG. SB 10 would hijack our toll money so the federal government would not have to allocate money to the treatment plants. But no money would even make its way to any plant because all the toll money would first pay SANDAG's 40-year debt. The important part about restoring the Tijuana River Valley, where so much of the pollution sits festering, was removed, and that's why Imperial Beach has announced SB 10. The only people who support it are Steve Padilla and his ally Paloma, who voted against real solutions to side instead with Mexico. Much like Nora, she also fears truth and ran away at a couple of the last meetings. And thank God IB is nothing like Barrio Logan because it's actually the people that make a community, not a project, but I know some people goes over their heads. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be allegedly Audra, followed by Cesar Javier.
Yes, so you need to get rid of the weighted vote. That's a severe problem. It's, concentrated power and it's an erosion of equality, different things. I mean, you really shouldn't be doing those things. And I'd like to see in your draft agendas something about what you guys are doing to severely impede the ability to provide housing because of all of the stuff that you're doing here. You care more about the planet, which you're never going to save because there's man-made weather warfare that's happening and different things that we like to say is climate change, right? And you'll spend all this money to pretend to help that, but you forget about the people, or you don't, and you just don't care about them. Like you sit up here and act like you do. If you did, then you wouldn't be doing things to severely impede the construction of homes, because you're worried about all these other things. So it's like, 10 years down the road, we'll go ahead and get you a home. You'll probably be out of the state. I mean, it's ridiculous the things you guys engage in and the things that you're doing to impede people's ability to evacuate during a fire. And I mean, do you have to be the one to perish in a fire for it to matter? Just wondering. Because all these things that you guys push has nothing to do with making the state better. I mean, the state is it's so embarrassing. It's embarrassing to be a Californian because of the things that you guys engage in and the state of the county. It's like the roads go to crap. You spend our money on other things. You don't make it easier to get around. You impede our ability to do anything. And because you're working with an entity that is controlling the movements, trafficking children, destroying nations, controlling resources, and you're not transparent with the people. And so you cannot be trusted with our money. This whole board needs to go.
Our next speaker will be Cesar Javier, followed by Blair Beekman.
I am always excited to come here and in our own resource. Very excited because we learn. We learn that there is a virus, political virus in my city. I will not get off, but a benchmark, my city. And this minute of yesterday is the verdict of what we are discussing now. Continuing discussion, I mean. Thank you, SANDAG. Where are the others? Viewpoint, input. I could only have seen yesterday, only 3, only 4. Where are you, bright politicians, if I may categorize that? And where are you, professionals, academics? You went on a meeting. We wanted that in the minute. The lessons learned. How much money have we saved with our process, with our system, and how much could we allocate to the most priority program? As what is now exemplified by SANDAG, they are taking over somewhat portion of sheltering. Think about it. Where are the rest of the thinkers? Look at your goodies. You haven't done your project yet or your homework, and yet you have your goodies. How much more? 3 more years, Councilor Lacaba. You will not be bringing home not only affordable housing, but mansions, fancy homes, fancy cars, fancy food, fancy restaurants. Tell me, your mission is for survivability of mankind, the noblest mission. And nobody will.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Our next speaker will be Blair Beekman, followed by Paul DeBold. Blair, you're self-muted at the moment.
Thank you. Boy, thank you a lot. I don't know what happened. Yeah, I'm Blair Beekman. I'm interested how we can be addressing the future of child immigration issues in San Diego County in our future. I think it's a very interesting subject. It can be a broad subject. Good luck how we can address it. Yeah, at the last meeting, we talked about Losan corridor issues, item 5. I got a little upset. I'm sorry I did. I've learned a lot since then. I've learned, that you guys want to partially double track at this time, not fully. And that partially is so key because I think you know that you're going to learn a lot of important lessons in just partially double tracking the corridor at this time. I hope those lessons can include the ideas that we may not have to fully double track the whole corridor. And we learn those lessons. Those are important environmental lessons, I think, that we have to respect the environment of the area, the housing of the area, and that as much as we may need double tracking in the future, to offer as little double tracking as possible may be really, really important. And So by doing beginning steps, that's key. Now, what's also key is that I learned from the last meeting that I still strongly believe in. The presentation by SANDAG staff was so strong that we're just double tracking the whole thing in the future, and that's all there is to it. It was offensive, and I think it offers a serious problem that we're talking about the future of accountability of SANDAG. We're not addressing what SANDAG staff is doing with their presentation process and their belief system. It doesn't incorporate a student-teacher learning process. It's just, here it is, live with it, love it, you know? It's not, we have to go through some serious more steps before we get to a full double track. Let's talk about it in those terms, not as we're bulldozing this through, guys.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Paula the Bold, followed by Consuelo.
All right, Paula Bowl. Thank you, Mayor Jones, for again mentioning that everyone in the county should have a vote at SANDAG. And thank you, Blair, for mentioning that bit about, SANDAG just going ahead and making a sort of report that tends to diss everyone who has an opinion that might be a bit different. Anyway, let me go on to meetings and events. I understand that the vice chair was in high-level meetings. No detail, but so I'm wondering how high and what was in fact the result of the discussions. Also, I'm wondering what was the result of the fact discussions. For example, you just cut funding for paratransit, and the outcome of things like that would be pretty important to the community. So you shouldn't be hiding them or not mentioning them. PAC actions. Once again, the report made available to us on May 2nd says you already approved several items that were not actually approved until May 9th. I hope you mentioned in the meeting that there were, in fact, no changes to the items if there were done. And the meeting minutes, again, the list of names, length, Oscars, and who did what on consent agenda, which was consented to. What a surprise. No actual summaries of what anyone said, although at least there were brief descriptions of what the substitute motions were.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Our final two speakers will be Consuelo, who will be followed by Gambler.
Okay, Consuelo here. Okay, so listening to the videos of the recent retreat it just only reinforces my stance on how out of touch some of these bodies on this board are. Like the brother who was talking about how much more government could be doing to help out with small businesses. Government needs to stay way out of the way of small businesses. Okay, brother, I don't know who you are. I didn't get, you're new on the board, but I just was like, wow, okay, here we go. Another out of touch representative. Meeting minutes, again, as Paul mentioned, when you omit details, it is one way of dissing the public to make them spend their precious time listening to tapes or searching records to see what went on. There should be a summary right there in the minutes for the gazillionth time. And oh yes, thank you to Tiffany for enlightening me about Imperial Barrio Beach. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Our final speaker will be Gambler. You can go ahead.
Gambler here. Well, I understand that we want to go ahead and send more money to organizations. These organizations, here's the deal. I went ahead and told everyone how to commit voter fraud. If you want to go ahead and report that or report organizations that go ahead and help with the trafficking of minors, like churches or whatever the case is, NGOs that go around and collect registration cards in order to fraud the election, feel free to call the DOJ. The phone number is 1-800-253-3931. Go ahead and report me for teaching people, every single one of these elected officials, of teaching them how to commit election fraud. If they do not want to go ahead and report it themselves, and they want to go ahead and run and ignore the fact that people are going around and stealing people's identities in order to steal their vote, then there is no hope for our vote. There is no hope to stop trafficking. There is no hope to stop them from making it so that we're paying $10 a mile to drive. There's nothing that will stop them from going ahead and applying the strictest regulations against each and every single one of us. Why? Because they could go ahead and elect the people or select the people that will go ahead and push these agendas. Whether they know that this is happening or not is besides the point. They are elected officials. They are here to protect us, and they are here to stop election fraud also. So if you guys want to go ahead and run again and allow election fraud to happen, I hope the people that you beat will go ahead and sue you over this. Sue you or try to go ahead and make our county.
Thank you. Your time has expired. That concludes the public comments on consent.
Very good, thank you. Are there any board member comments on consent? I see nobody. My board is completely blank. So I see nothing. No? No? Okay, we have a motion by Minto. We have a second by Sanchez. Please vote using your devices to approve consent. There you go. El Cajon. There you go.
That motion passes unanimously with those members present.
Very good. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Daniel. All right, thank you. We'll now move on to the proposed final fiscal year 2026 program budget and related reports. We'll have staff present both reports, then move on to public comment and member discussion. Don, please go ahead. And Susan.
I think I wanted to just open up, like we've been saying before, that this is the beginning of the conversation. We're presenting a budget. The team has done the utmost. We need to present it to the state. The due date, I think it's today, or that needs to be presented, or yes. But this doesn't mean that this is not going to be a living document, as we're going to be discussing priorities, bringing to this board different options for priorities of projects and programs. So I just want to, I know I'm probably sounding like a broken record, but I just want to keep highlighting that.
All right, thank you, Mario. So I'm not going to repeat the first part of my points because it will be a broken record. So today you're asked to approve the fiscal year 2026 annual program budget. This isn't the end of the conversation, but we do have some mandated deadlines that we are trying to meet. Certainly, we fully anticipate amendments to this budget as these discussions that the board is asked to have continue. Last week, we talked a lot about funding at the retreat.
Would you mind moving the mic just a little closer? I'd appreciate it.
Thank you for letting me know.
Thank you, ma'am.
Back in February, you were presented with revenue estimates for the Transportation Development Act and the Transnet revenues. And in that discussion, we reduced the current year estimates and came in with a lower forecast for next year. So obviously, we're in some challenging times. There's some uncertainty and volatility in the economy, and we are really closely monitoring that. All of that has influenced what you're seeing today in the proposed final budget. So in general, you'll see that we've already started taking measures to right size and focus our work. We're taking a close look at who is doing what and how it aligns with all of our mandates. You'll also see reflected in the proposed budget the pillars that Mario has communicated and committed the agency to regarding focusing on oversight and transparency, also focusing on fundamentals, and looking at the agency's leadership and organization structure. So as we all know, staff is at the center of everything we do. So Josh is going to start this item with a focus on our current vacancy and retention rates. And then Susan is going to zoom out, provide an update on what has changed between the draft budget that was presented to you all in March and what is before you today. So I'll pass it over to Josh.
Thank you, Dawn. Good morning. My name is Joshua Golter, and I serve as your Director of Human Resources. As part of our commitment to transparency and strategic workforce planning, this report provides an annual update on staffing levels and recruitment activity in accordance with Assembly Bill 2561. This update is designed to inform the board ahead of the 2026 budget adoption. Regarding our current staffing statuses, as of now, the agency has 69 vacancies distributed across departments. Our vacancy rate across FY 2025 was 13.77%. While our metrics reflect improvement, the impact remains significant. Every vacancy means additional workload for current staff, decreased operational efficiency, and potential delays in service delivery. The true cost of the employee vacancies goes far beyond just the time and cost to recruit. It includes increased demands on existing employees, slower onboarding of new staff, and disruptions to team cohesion and knowledge continuity. When roles frequently turn over or multiple positions remain unfilled, these challenges are magnified, affecting both productivity and morale. Regarding our recruitment efforts to address immediate staffing needs, leadership has prioritized department recruitment requests and implemented a streamlined review process to ensure we are focusing recruitment resources on the most critical roles. We've enhanced our recruitment capabilities by expanding outreach to include passive candidates through sourcing, leveraging our applicant tracking system, and strengthening visibility through job platforms and targeted advertising. A recent review of new hires showed the average time from application to start date was 3 months, a benchmark we're looking to improve further. Regarding retention, we've made progress both in hiring and retention. 62 employees joined the agency in FY 2025. We've achieved a 90% retention rate, a notable improvement over past years. Our current attrition rate of 10% is considered healthy and reflects greater workforce stability. However, we've identified 2 areas of continued risk. 82% of our attrition occurs within the first 3 years of employment, and 21% of our employees are at or nearing retirement age eligibility. Taken together, approximately 60% of our workforce falls into these retention risk categories. Essentially, our longer-term employees leave with knowledge that our newest employees need, and that is where we also have the highest attrition. What's next? A targeted data-driven retention strategy. In FY 2026, we will launch strategic retention planning grounded in best practices and tailored to our agency's unique needs and workforce dynamics. This plan will use internal data such as tenure, performance trends, engagement levels, and exit feedback to identify the most effective interventions. Key focus areas will include early career engagement, strengthening onboarding, mentorship, and training during the first 3 years to improve retention, knowledge transfer and succession, preparing for retirements through succession planning, documentation, and leadership development, stay interviews and feedback loops, collecting real-time input from current staff to stay ahead of disengagement or preventable turnover, and then recognition and career growth, expanding professional development and recognition programs to align with employee goals and agency priorities. These efforts will complement our ongoing work in recruitment and process improvements and help ensure we retain the knowledge, experience, and commitment of our workforce. We will continue to provide annual updates to the board to keep leadership informed of staffing trends and the effectiveness of our workforce strategies. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
We'll just continue with the presentation. Okay.
Thank you.
So I'll go ahead and jump into the budget. I was telling my staff this morning, there's 2 days a year that I do jazz hands. It's today when I get to present to you, the board, our final budget for adoption. And it's also in the fall when we do the kickoff of the annual program budget internally. And so I'm really excited to be here today for this culminating experience and asking you to adopt our next year annual program budget. So obviously today's a long time coming. It's the culmination of months and months of hard work, both internally and externally with our stakeholders and partners, member agencies, and of course you. We've had lots of discussions this year on the budget and priorities and mandates. So here we are today for asking for adoption of the final program budget. I do want to go into some of the details of how we got here today. So we started this journey back with the executive committee back in February, where we sought input on the programs, projects, services, activities that we intended to carry out in the upcoming year. We talked about our roles and responsibilities that are mandated by federal and state law or delegated to SANDAG through local agreements. The draft budget was presented to the Social Equity Working Group, the Mobility Working Group, ITALK. Also, the Audit Committee reviewed their budget in March, and the Public Safety Committee reviewed ARGIS and the Criminal Justice Program budgets in April. And then the draft budget was distributed in March to our member agencies, posted on our website, and also our funding agencies for comment. Over the last 6 weeks, we've incorporated the comments we've received from our funding agencies. The nature of these comments has been focused on adding detail for transparency, for funding eligibility, and expanding on work element descriptions to document how SANDAG is meeting performance-based planning and programming goals. Pending adoption by the board, the budget would be distributed to the Federal Highway Administration, the Federal Transit Administration, Caltrans, and SANDAG member agencies. And like Mario indicated, the approved budget is required for federal and state funding agencies to allocate funds for SANDAG projects and for local jurisdictions and the transit operators to receive their Transnet pass-through revenue. Again, the budget does not end with this vote. Today's action is not the end of the conversation. It's where we are today, a snapshot. As we talked about at the retreat, in the months ahead, the board will be asked to provide direction as staff works to refine the budget and ensure the programs and projects we deliver are supported by sound, sustainable funding strategies and remain aligned with our regional goals and mandates and responsibilities. One thing I do want to note is that SANDAG staff will provide the board an informational update on FY26 weighted vote distribution and member agency assessments at its May 30th meeting. Traditionally, this information has been presented as part of the final budget. However, population data from the California Department of Finance necessary for these annual recalculations was not available in time for this report today. So we'll be bringing that back at the end of the month. So we'll jump into what's changed and what is in our final budget. So to begin with, I want to point out that the proposed final budget very closely aligns with the draft budget. No major changes. $1.3 billion was what was presented in the draft, and that's what's being proposed in our final budget. We've made some refinements to projects within the programs, which are detailed in attachment 2, and we'll talk about them more in future slides. The Transnet revenue estimated in the final budget is consistent with the Transnet estimates that were approved by this board in February that Dawn mentioned and which were used for the draft budgets. So there are no updates to the pass-through amounts planned for the local jurisdictions or transit operators. Also, we've been reviewing this chart. I think the board is maybe getting comfortable with this, and this pie is also included in attachment 1. This is in the budget in brief. This provides the high-level summary of each of the components within the budget. The capital, that's the part at the top. It accounts for over half of the expenditures, almost $683 million. And then going counterclockwise, those next 3 pink pieces of the pies there. That's the 459 million of Transnet revenue that comes in. A portion of that, 13% of the overall revenue goes to the Transnet Major Corridor Program. 17%, that's the piece that goes out to the transit operators and local jurisdictions. And then the other Transnet, that's for administration, the bike program, and also some interest earnings. Next, 7% of the budget, roughly 87 million, is for our regional operations and services, 8% for our OWP program, and then our board budget. We continue to receive a major portion of our revenue is coming from federal and state. Over 3/4 of the revenue is made up of federal and state. Only 15% comes from Transnet sales tax. Other local funds are the Transportation Development Act funds, member assessments, and toll revenues. As we shared back in March, we are continuing to work with our federal funding partners to finalize several competitive grant awards that SANDAG was selected to receive. While these revenues have been included in the fiscal year 26 budget, the timing and certainty of these funds remain unclear due to delays at the federal level in executing grant agreements. For your reference, attachment 4 of the agenda report outlines the specific grants that are still pending. So in terms of the work that we have in the plan for next year, when we presented the draft, we highlighted some of our major work efforts. Just a reminder of some of the major efforts that are going on next year: the regional plan development and implementation, our focus on data science, analytics, and modeling. We have the 3 major grant programs that we will be working on in fiscal year 26, the HAP program, Smart Growth Incentive Program, and our Access for All. Also, we have our transit planning, corridor planning, and financial management and community outreach and engagement efforts. Within regional operations and services, SANDAG will continue to operate and maintain regional transportation facilities and law enforcement data systems that support travelers, employers, and public safety agencies in San Diego County. We continue to invest in upgrading our toll facilities and looking for efficiencies and process improvements. We've also noted here some of our major capital project highlights that we'll be working on in fiscal year 26. Again, on the Lausanne corridor, a lot of work is going on, and as well as the Del Mar Bluff stabilization, major efforts at Otay Mesa East Port of Entry, the Bikeway program, and we are continuing to implement the Transnet Major Corridor program throughout the region. So in terms of getting down to the dollars of what has actually changed between the draft and the final, within the overall work program, the budget was decreased by roughly 700,000. I do want to note some of the things that the drivers of this change. So within our budget, there was a decrease of 6.5 million for the Youth Opportunity Program. And we talked about the Youth Opportunity Program extensively at the draft budget. Well, what's happening here is that the revenue that's paying for the Youth Opportunity Program is being obligated directly by the transit operators. And so that program continues to be funded through June of 2026, but that revenue is going directly to the transit operators, so it's no longer included in our budget. What's in our budget is only our staff time for community outreach and upgrading some of our open data portal in terms of ridership data. So I just want to assure you that that program is still being funded. It's just being funded through the transit operator's budget, not through our budget. We also have an increase in the OWP of $4 million, where we're moving projects that were in our capital budget into our OWP. And that is because those projects are really in the planning part of the project delivery, and it's more consistent with how those projects should be. They were moved into the capital program, but really those are planning projects. So in order to be more consistent, we move them back into the planning. And then we've added 6 million of additional revenue for the Specialized Transportation Grant Program. We had originally thought that those funds would be spent in the current year. Those are carryover funds. They'll actually be spent next year. And then there were some minor reallocations and adjustments based on changes in the overhead rate. Within regional operations and services, very minimal changes here, $600,000. It was bumped up from 86 million to 86.6 million. A lot of that had to do also with the reallocation of between projects, impact on labor from the overhead rate, and increased costs for postage in FY26. Within the capital budget, the slice for FY26 went down by 2.1 million because of those projects that were transferred over into the OWP program. And then the multi-year budget was decreased by $87.8 million. Mostly that's coming because one of our projects that opened, completed construction in 2019 is finally done and we can take it out of the budget. So $95 million will not be carried over into the budget next year, which is a good thing. We also moved $6.64 million up into the OWP that I've mentioned. We have delayed a project for CMCP on State Route 125 while the other State Route 125 toll removal analysis is completed. We've added 7.6 million in revenue from MTS and the city of San Diego to projects that SANDAG is working on with them. And they have been contributing to projects that we are implementing on their behalf. And we've also updated project costs in alignment with updated engineers' estimates on the Barrio Logan Phase 2 bike project, the San Onofre to Pulgas double track Phase 2 project, and the Serena to Miramar Phase 2 project. In terms of the administration and board budget, we've had some staffing changes within the last 6 months. And so these changes are probably due to align with internal agency priorities, like the focus on fundamentals and audit response, as well as organizational efficiencies and realignment. We've also sharpened our pencils in terms of purchases of software, laptops, and general facilities and supplies. Back to you, Josh.
The personnel budget includes strategic reductions by eliminating 7 vacant positions. This approach helps us align our staffing with current operational priorities while supporting our commitment to fiscal responsibility. For the FY2026 position classification and salary range table, we're proposing 12 new classifications that will help the agency operate more efficiently through better use of technology, improving how we deliver digital services, and strengthening our ability to manage capital projects. These roles will be filled either by reassigning current vacancies or through open recruitment, which may include reclassifying current employees. Importantly, we can do this without increasing the number of approved positions in our overall personnel budget. We're also recommending the elimination of 3 legacy executive roles: Deputy CEO for Planning, Programs, and Projects, Deputy CEO Business Operations, and Chief Deputy CEO. These roles no longer reflect how the agency operates or where we're headed strategically. Over the past year, we've streamlined our decision-making processes and adopted a more focused and collaborative leadership model to better support long-term effectiveness and responsible use of resources. Regarding benefits, we're recommending ending 2 benefits: the computer loan purchase program. The agency has transitioned to providing all employees laptops, and ending the vehicle allowance for CEO and deputy CEOs. No current employees receive this benefit.
So with that, the Board of Directors is asked to adopt Regional Transportation Commission Resolution RTC 2025, adopting the final FY26 program budget.
Wonderful. Thank you, Susan and Don and Josh. Appreciate it. We'll get to board questions after we get to public comments. Francesca.
Thank you very much. We have a total of 10 public comments on this item. We'll start with truth and then go to allegedly Audra.
Yes to ending all vehicle allowances. No to almost 1 million on conceptualizing tunnels under homes in National City, as once implied by Councilmember Jose Rodriguez. What is the Sorrento to Miramar Phase 2 project? SANDAG has a pretty big vacancy rate, but luckily Gallegos, Alejandra, Serge, Hassan, Andre, Nora, Sean, and the rest are gone. That's why the retention rate is improved in SANDAG. Don't be afraid to hire men. I demand every single Transnet project sitting dusty for 3 decades be prioritized. Nothing else before. I demand SANDAG invest in a public records data portal so that public records requests are answered and accessible by all. I demand a Vision Zero for public transit with a heavy investment in public transit safety. That means lighting, emergency buttons, more security, and SANDAG measured paid ridership results. The MTS has lied about giving out $25 citations to non-paying riders. That's not happening. Only after trolleys have been made safe again for women and children is when anyone should have the audacity to ask for $6.5 million of our tax dollars a year going to allowing children to ride on our dime. And only if they are 12 and under with a paid and registered guardian. So when something happens to that child, we know whose care they were supposed to be in. Anything less is proof that those who say they care about children don't really care about anyone who relies on public transit. And Mario, don't try to pass blame for the money shuffle to YOP on youth council. If that's true, that's collusion. And how can MTS or NCTD afford $3.5 million when they're in a deficit? I demand lighted crosswalks as part of active transportation projects. People crossing streets at night without proper lighting is where most accidents with pedestrians happen, and it's preventable. I demand more projects in underserved East County. I demand SANDAG removes all racist DEI programs to avoid federal defunding. And just like Eileen Delaney said, not everyone is included in SANDAG's exclusive regional plans and non-data or fact-based biased opinions. There's a whole part, and a whole part here missing on your map. And how much of the $150 million grant for the OME border crossing was wasted tearing up the newly paved SR 11? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be allegedly Audra, followed by Cesar Javier.
They don't care about children. They want them to be trafficked on the transit system. That's why you guys do that. Anywho, so everything you guys are engaging is fraud, waste, and abuse. You don't want us in our cars. The plan is to get us out of our cars. So why are we spending money on electric vehicle infrastructure? It doesn't make sense because you know that at some point it's going to come down that we're not even going to be able to drive. So we're wasting money on this infrastructure that is actually detrimental to the earth to just mine for these minerals, right? And we have to use gas and oil, but only for what it fits you guys to do, right? And hey, there's children mining for them. How cool is that? Like little babies, like little tiny children just sitting there in those minerals, just, you know, digging them out so you guys can have your electric vehicle infrastructure, which are lithium bombs. But hey, when there's, you know, agendas to get rid of people, who cares if, you know, a whole neighborhood burns down because we're going to be implementing this, or somebody dies in their car? Who really cares? We want to get them out of their car. Maybe it'll make them get out of their car. And when you sit here and talk about smart growth, and it's not smart growth, you're trying to put people into a 15-minute city with all of this, right? It's like, see why LA burned down? You see why, you know, Maui burned down? They want smart cities there, right? How cool is that? When the people don't want it, all you got to do is burn the town down, and then you got the land to do whatever you guys want with it. And you know, and just the health effects of all of the things that you guys are doing. Radiation emits off of these electric vehicle charging infrastructure BS that you guys want to implement, but as long as you tell people and give them lip service that it's saving the planet, right? You guys are doing your job, right? It's good. And you know, this housing acceleration program, like just the names you guys give it, it's like we're really accelerating housing. No, we're showing how inept you are in your ability to be able to provide housing, but as long as you use that language, people think you're doing a very good job.
I think our next speaker will be Cesar Javier, followed by Guadalupe Rojas.
Cesar Javier. SANDAG is for mobility and circulation, and it looks like that's encroaching on man's sheltering and even our society as far as environment is concerned. I have a strong platform to say that corruption equals monopoly plus discretionary minus accountability. I haven't seen exactly what's going on in SANDAG. This is my several attendance But in my city, as an example of this, is a political virus from this manpower. If these are the people you are recruiting, per se, this is what becomes the finest city, Councilor Licawa, Councilor Lee, and former Councilor District 4, who is now in the helm of District 4 County, political virus. You are the witness. Look at the organizational, the Manning chart. We are confused. We are driving the same Cadillac model, USA. We know the defect, the fuel line, and there's so many leaks. City of San Diego. I cannot only explain this, but in a metaphor. In engineering language English, with a period, punctuation mark, simple predicating subject. I cannot even pronounce the prefix. Well, how do I call my mayor? Mr., Miss, them? Oh my God, what's happening? This is a lesson, sir. Mom Chair, political mogul, Sir CEO, non-political. Let's not be.
Thank you very much. Your time has expired. Our next speaker will be Guadalupe Rojas, followed by Carolee Serrano.
Hello, everyone. My name is Guadalupe Rojas, community organizer with Mid-City Community Advocacy Network, and I am here on behalf of a community advocate. And his testimony says, hello, my name is Vicente Sayas, and I am a member of Mid-City Kansas Improving Transportation and City Heights team. Although I cannot make my presence in front of you right now, I do declare that I am in support of SANDAG funding programs like the Youth Opportunity Pass program. Although I will no longer qualify for YOP next Monday, I am grateful for the countless trips that I took by bus or trolley that were funded. Throughout my junior and senior years of high school and up until right now that I am a college student, I was heavily dependent on my Pronto card to go to school, many places of employment, and my extracurriculars. Now that youth have been provided with the proper means to get around, they have been able to reach their full potential by arriving at school and on a more consistent basis in keeping the financial situation of those that use San Diego MTS afloat. I ask that you keep on funding programs like YOP so that many students like me can keep pursuing their interests, their dreams like I am doing. Thank you deeply for the funding that was provided for YOP back in 2022, and please acknowledge that there are many more users like myself alongside who are greatly thankful for it. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Carolee Serrano, followed by Carla Navarro.
Good morning, council members. I'll be reading public comment on behalf of Adeline Tapia. She's a YOP writer. She said, good morning, board members. My name is Adeline Tapia. I am a youth who uses the Youth Opportunity Pass. I live in a rural area of El Cajon, and I am a senior at Seal Canyon High School in Spring Valley. Since 2022, I have used YOP to commute all around San Diego. My passion for creativity brought me to Mid-City Kansas Artivism program, which inspired me and opened many doors. Since then, I have joined their youth council every Friday, requiring me to commute from Spring Valley to City Heights. My commute is about 2 hours from school to City Heights. Being able to attend youth council has opened many doors, including connections, opportunities, and community. YOP helps me and my family when they can't drive me and has saved us so much money. As a POC first-generation student in this area, I have realized there is a lack of investment in youth development, and YOP has helped with that. YOP has helped me find connections in the city that have helped guide me to a more secure future. I bring this to express how important it is for me and youth to be able to have access to free public transportation and how reliant I am on it to explore and discover opportunities. From my experience and observations, students in my high school are heavily reliant on YOP as well. Many students commute from Tecate to school, which is about an hour bus ride, and the buses are filled with students. YOP is access for many students around, which is why I ask you to acknowledge the impact this program has had on youth and in the importance of considering extending the funding past 2026. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Carla Navarro, followed by Paul the Bold.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Carla Navarro, and I am privileged to be here thanks to the Youth Opportunity Pass. I am a City Heights resident and currently in my first year wrapping up at Miramar College. Since 2022, YOP has allowed me to commute all over San Diego, especially going to school, internships, and work. By gaining access to these opportunities, I was able to secure a job at Mid-City CAN as a community health worker. And with my role, I have been able to not only share my experience on but also learn how community advocacy impacts. Without these programs like YOP, I will not be able to accomplish my many successes and not allow me to be here to where I am. Growing up in a single mother household, I could not have access to these opportunities without YOP. Due to my mother's busy schedule and trying to make ends meet, I had no option but to rely on public transportation. This program alleviated the financial burden on my mother, and I was able to explore. Transportation should not be a barrier to our youth success, and my experience demonstrates this. However, I know my experience isn't unique, and many of the youth I have interacted have the similar situation. YOP has opened doors for me, and I am so thankful for this program that has been funded for the past 3 years, but I urge you to realize the importance of this program on the lives of our youth. Please consider extending this YOP past 2026 to ensure that our youth like me are able to create better lives for ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Paul the Bold, who will be followed by Alex Wong.
Hi, Paul the Bold. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. These two items, the vacancies, recruitment, and the budget, are not sufficiently related, so allowing 2 minutes for both as a way of censoring us. 69 job vacancies, 13.7 vacancy rate, and about a 13.9% hiring rate. You really need to attract more employers, or the quality of work will suffer due to both employees overstressed by too much work and employees trained in one area doing work in an unfamiliar area. Eliminating an audit staffer, though, should make your double dealing a bit easier. And all of this will probably result in a product of less durability or quality, and could represent a danger to the public. For instance, you might end up with an electrician working on fixing potholes. He or she would probably have to do a lot more research, meaning slower work, and would probably not know the state-of-the-art repair methods. And who knows, someone might even hit a pothole wrong and sue for injuries. Or you might end up with an architect managing construction. Again, slower work and worse construction. This could pose a real danger to the public or the taxpayer if walls or buildings collapse and require more frequent repair. The report mentions that the fixes involve leveraging outside activities more than internal fixes. Enough! You need to fix your internal staff, mainly the hostile work atmosphere we've heard about. Employment data should be listed prominently and reviewed quarterly. Now the budget.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Our next speaker will be Alex Wong, followed by Gambler.
I'm asking the board to amend item 5B and reallocate 22.5 million away from long-term freeway studies into congestion relief investments we can implement in the next 2 years. Consider what 22.5 million could bring us now. It would take only 3.7 million annually to double mid-coast frequencies from 15 to 7.5 minutes. It would take only 1.5 million to build 4.9 miles of dedicated bus lanes, and only $400,000 to launch a pilot program to allow the 215 and 245 rapid bus passengers to board from any door, thus improving speed by up to 25%. We've heard from over 700 youth, hundreds of working families, and transit riders across this region who are tired for waiting for results. SANDAG's own modeling shows that these changes would cut over 7,000 daily vehicle hours of delay. This is real relief. Faster, cheaper, and fairer. Please take action and amend the budget.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Gambler, followed by Blair Beekman.
Gambler here. Well, budget time. And we're all here going to go ahead and voice our opinions to you, and you're supposed to be listening to us. But if you want indication whether or not that these politicians know that voter fraud is happening and who is actually getting them elected, take it from their words themselves. They told you if they had to listen to you, they would get no work done. No other member corrected him in that statement, meaning that every single one of these board members will recognize that they no longer need to serve you. What they need to do is serve the NGOs, because the NGOs are stealing the votes of people who no longer vote. They are voting for them. They are funneling these ballots through dorm rooms. They're funneling these ballots through homeless facilities and NGOs. That way they could go ahead and allow trafficking. They could go ahead and allow mining and using slave labor to go ahead and mine things instead of using hemp to go ahead and create our batteries, which makes our batteries more effective and charge much faster without using slave labor or tearing up major holes in the environment. But that makes these organizations ungodly amount of money. On top of that, your little tiny project that you want to spend $8 million to strengthen the railroad. If you were to combine all three of these, you could cut down the cost down to $4,000 without doing that and not have such a major tunnel. I mean, $4 million, cut it down to half without affecting anyone, without pushing your own agenda. But no, you could totally tell the way that we're going to go is because how they're focusing all the money, no matter how many times people say, please, can you look at this other option?
Thank you. Your time has expired. Our next speaker will be Blair Beekman, followed by Consuelo, and Consuelo will be our final speaker.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Thanks for the budget report. Local cities, San Diego, and I guess across California are having their public budget times right now. So it's a difficult time. Good luck how we can be forecasting the next couple of years economically. Boy, if you can do that, and share that with the public, make it clear, that's a prize. I think we're all concerned what to really expect of our economy in the next upcoming year. Good luck how we can work on it to be a clear process for ourselves. It's important. I wanted to quickly offer that it was nice to hear that you'll be continue to be working on accountable ways to be clear with your auditing procedures, and from your good auditing procedures, how that can emanate a sense of clarity and respectability. That I hope we are developing new practices for the future of SANDAG, and how in connection and relationships with board persons, staff, and community. All of us kind of reintroducing ourselves, trying to reestablish best practice ideals. I come from the place of tech accountability, so I'm really hopeful what we can be working on together. I think, being clear with each other, having good communication skills with each other, and making really clear points of view, and not being overly, emphasizing the importance of our own point of view. I learned that a lot with how the Lausanne corridor things. I think it's important SANDAG staff work to create a more balanced, neutral presentation. If we all make those sort of good steps together, I think we can be building something really important for the future. That actually doesn't cost very much money, believe it or not, is why I'm interested in such things. Thank you.
Our final speaker will be Consuelo. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Francesca. So I'm going to be finishing what Paul the Bold worked hard to put together, and that you guys didn't give enough time for him to finish. Anyway, so the big picture, you have $1.3 billion budget, of which 42% is funded by the state and 31% by the feds, both which have huge deficits and are basically broke. Moreover, the feds have shown a huge inclination to slash grants, also employees and funding. And given all the firings, companies going bust, and the general employment scene, I wouldn't be too sure of the Transnet revenues. But congratulations, the big picture improved greatly. There are huge budget deficits and uncertainty at the state and federal levels, which seem to change daily. In fact, the feds have already taken back $40 million of an approved grant to the county HHSA and just announced they will claw back $6 million of mental health grant to La Mesa schools. Nor is your own funding at the counties particularly stable. You should re-examine a budget which projects the same level of funding from these entities as the last meeting. Please stop painting a rosy, unreal picture because it will catch up with you. You'll be really unhappy when you need to make big cuts or delays to needed improvements. They already know this. But the overall budget has barely changed. In fact, the drafts say sales data in the first half fiscal year 2025 point to another year of negative growth. Transnet revenue fiscal year 2025 is predicted to be $420.1 million, nearly $14 million less than initially projected in the previous budget. Looks like you increased the estimate a bit. Dream on. It continues. SANDAG's revenue is subject to both the state and federal government approving annual budgets, which we initially assume will remain flat, which is now sure to be wrong. On March 19th, the Fed sharply lowered its...
Thank you very much. Your time has expired. That concludes the public comments on this item.
Thank you so much. Thanks to our public speakers. And before we go to the board for questions and comments, I'd like to acknowledge that we all did receive quite a few emails from an organized group of young folks. I'm very happy to have heard from them. Their email was kind of condensed and presented to us today by one of our virtual speakers. That is not on the agenda today. But I do want to thank them all for writing in. It's as we discussed at the retreat, and we've been sort of discussing a little bit throughout this discussion of the budget. We know that we're going to be amending this budget because we're going to be doing the very same thing that these young people have done for us with one of, with their requests that we, of course, will then take over ourselves and review. And that is look in every corner of the budget and all of our programs and all of our projects and prioritize them and make sure that what we are going to be seeing going forth are more projects that and more programs that move people through this region and not just parking funds in some deep pockets in the agenda. I will say that I have reached out to these young people and spoken with them and connected them with staff. This is just what we want, this sort of participation where people are informed and providing us with good information. I will say it's a little more complicated than was presented to us, and I think the board has something to say about some of the requests that they made. But again, that's not on the agenda today. We will be discussing overall a number of changes to our programs and projects, and we can consider those as we want. I'll also just take a moment to say that I think I hear all of you folks who came for the Youth Opportunity Pass. We recognize the impact the positive impact it's made on your lives and many others, and we're working to find more funding for that so that we can continue that program. With that, I'll call on our first board member, and that is Ms. Maxson.
Thank you, Chair. In my previous work, I did a lot of interviews and a lot of hiring, hundreds and hundreds of associates. So your report on retention.
Can you speak closer to the mic, please?
Yes, so your report on retention really caught my ear. So for Josh, I have a couple of questions. How much money will be spent to research an issue, such as retention, that is a common problem for many businesses and agencies? 2, how much do you attribute attrition with the newer employees to the change in work culture where employees do not come to the workplace with the idea that this may be their forever career? That's part of many reasons for departing a job. And then finally, with an unstable economy, which will result in employees being less likely to job hop, in other words, retention should, is it likely that the natural change in retention numbers, will occur? How is your retention project going to reflect that this is a likely natural change that will be coming up? Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. As it relates to cost spent researching what's driving these core issues. I can't speak to an estimate of cost at this point, but I do know that internally we have strengthened our data science capabilities within the HR team, and then we also partner with our data science team in broader SANDAG. And what we would be looking for is going deeper into exit surveys, engagement surveys, and those items, and along with all the other kind of factors that we can capture to get the best picture for what's driving us at an individual and custom level to the agency itself. What we learn will then decide how we go and attack those challenges, if you will. So I don't have an estimate for that. I just have that we will be looking into that. That's the very next step of building that out, that capability out, is first, what's the highest level, and then what are the additional questions that those create, and then looking for answers for those questions. To your point about the generational shifts, yes, that is a very big thing. The newest generations coming out of the universities or coming into us with those, we recognize that that is a major factor there. And you do see even instances where employees may have had a wonderful experience, but still see the need to go out and gather more experiences and broaden those experiences. And that's on us in a couple areas. One, making sure that we're doing a really great job of recruiting internally, creating those development opportunities, those career growth opportunities, so that they don't see necessarily that they have to leave the agency to go find that next opportunity. On the other side, with our work with back to basics and standard operating procedures, we have to ensure that our processes are robust to withstand some of the realities of the turnover in that generation. And then can you remind me what the third question was? I'm sorry.
It was how you're planning to represent the natural reduction in loss of employees that will occur when the economy is unstable. So people are less likely to leave a job when they're not so sure about the next one.
Yeah, so I would say to that's our opportunity, right? As the labor market cools, market shifts or job hopping, job switching reduces. That's our opportunity to make sure that we can shore up while we have those employees, those additional processes around development, around career opportunities, so that we're able to retain those. Once we've retained an employee past the 3-year mark, they tend to stay at a much higher rate. And so it's looking at that timeline, if you will, and saying what are we missing in that timeline, and that includes the gathering information, like what's driving them to leave, what's driving them to look for those opportunities, what are we not offering. So that would be our general philosophy when approaching this challenge.
Thank you. And before I go on to Mayor Wells, who's our next speaker, we have a total of 6 board members who want to speak. It's now about 12:20, and so we're going to need a motion to extend the meeting to 1 o'clock. We have a motion to extend the meeting to 1 o'clock.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, LaCava and Sanchez, please vote to extend the meeting to 1 o'clock. Omar.
That motion passes unanimously with
Okay,
those members present.
very good. On to Mayor Wells.
Thank you very much. I'm looking at a graph that says that we're spending just shy of $100 million on bike lanes. Am I looking at that correctly? Page.
Can you tell me what you're looking at so I can reference it?
Page 25. Oh, yeah, where it says regional bikeway, $99,265,000.
That's correct.
So my constituents, I don't know what it's like in other cities, but what I'm hearing a lot from my constituents is they don't want to spend any money on bike lanes. They're very angry about this. I hear about it quite often. Before this budget is completely adopted, will we have opportunities to take a closer look at the money we're spending on bike lanes? And part of my question is, how much are we obligated to spend on bike lanes per state law?
Well, we do have a number of bike projects that are currently ongoing. And so there are projects, and I'd have to go through the list right now, or maybe David can help with some details in terms of projects that are currently in construction where we have obligations based on the funding that's coming to the region and the status of those projects. It really would depend on the projects. How much are we obligated by state law? I'm not familiar with the state law, but it would have to be based on the funding that we have received where we have committed ourselves to completing a project.
Just to clarify, so a lot of times when there's been criticism of the amount of money we're spending on, say, trolleys versus highways, the answer always seems to be, well, there's nothing we can do about that. State laws, because of the new climate regulations, says we have to spend so much money on this kind of transportation. I'm just wondering if bike lanes falls under the same category, meaning is it legitimate for me to go back to my constituents and say, nothing we can do, the state requires that we spend money on bike lanes?
Mayor Wells, let me try to get to that at a bigger picture. Couple things. The budget is a cash flow snapshot. And a good chunk of the bike program budget is based on grants that were received, that were pursued and received. There are matching funds from a portion of the Transnet ordinance that is for active transportation or something like that, and the team can correct me, but there is a portion, a percentage within Transnet that's dedicated for this type of projects. That's what I call some of those lock boxes. And part of the discussion that's going to be coming in the near future is prioritizing projects and maybe even foregoing some state or federal grants if we see that it's too far ahead or it requires too much of a commitment from the local match, meaning the Transnet.
Yeah, I understand.
So I think that's where you're asking. Is there a mandate that we pursue those projects with federal and state funds? No. Is there a mandate to look at multiple modes of transportation? Yes, it's part of the strategy to reduce greenhouse emissions. But I think this is going to be part of that conversation, very tough conversation that we'll be having in the next months. But I do want to highlight that a lot of that funding, if not the majority, and Susan, correct me, it's not local funds. There was an opportunity. We raised our hand, we applied for it, and we got it. But there are matching funds, and I think that is the conversation. We are slowly evaluating the entire bike program. I can tell you that from a personal point of view, I think we should eventually be moving more to a grant-based program with the local funds where the cities can decide if they want to apply. But that's a long lead idea. But right now, to answer your questions, is there a mandate of so much being spent? No. Is there an amount that's set in a lockbox for bike projects? Yes, or active transportation projects. And the majority of the budget, it's funding that we got from other sources, which are grants that we applied.
Well, thank you for clarification on that. That definitely changes the outlook of it. I think it would be helpful to me, and I think it'd be helpful to the public to have a clear delineation of how much of this $100 million has come from grants and outside funding that we wouldn't have got had we not put it into this basket. And, what our obligation proposed would be to match our end of it. I just think that sunlight really helps people to understand so that they don't, because I know what my constituents are going to look at this, they're going to say, you've spent $100 million on bike lanes and we don't want them. And it would be great to say, well, actually 86 million of that was from local grants, and that would at least clarify it.
we can do that. And just as a piece of backup information, I know that it's a long queue. There was a bike project proposed for Pacific Highway. And one of the budget lines that Susan was mentioning, transferring a project to the OWP, to the planning, is that we said, no, wait a minute, we can't go and put a bike lane on Pacific Highway with NAVWAR, other developments, figuring out Old Town access to the airport for transit or others. We can't just go and plug in a bike project when we still don't have the big picture of a corridor analysis of what is really needed in that location. So that's an example where we delayed or pulled the plug on that project to be implemented, so we can really take a more holistic look at what really is needed in that corridor. So that's an example.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, Mayor Wells. Mayor Minto?
You know what, I just wanted to say a couple things about your thoughts there, Bill. And because I have always been very much opposed to building bikeways and stuff, because I didn't think it had a real connection to people going to work, because I don't want people going to work and getting all sweaty and hanging out next to me in my cubicle. And but what I found is that since I've been riding a bicycle, is that there's a larger and larger number of people that are actually using bicycles for recreation, a lot on the weekends. And you may find this hard to believe. I probably have bicycled 2,000 miles or more just in the city of El Cajon. And El Cajon does have some bicycle lanes, and some of those areas are extremely good, well prepared. So your engineer is doing a good job. And so it's not just about the people who live in the city of El Cajon that may use those bike lanes, but also people who are recreating. And to have a well-prepared bike lane that doesn't cost $1 million a mile is important, because you also don't want to spend the resources on those people being injured in your city, and because that's going to be a different kind of cost for medical and other things of that nature. So what I've had to tell people, I've had to really reinvent what I thought about all this, and is that I know that we don't want to build a lot of bicycle lanes that are just not going to be used. But what we have to do is think about people who do use them, and the growing number is actually quite remarkable. So just a thought, because I was exactly where you were probably a while back. So
Thank you for that. Deputy Mayor Chavez.
Thank you. And I also want to thank all the youth that joined us today. I think investing on the Youth Opportunity Pass is investing in creating a sustainable transportation habit among the next generation. So we're investing today, but we're cutting carbon emissions tomorrow. So I also want to mention, I want to highlight the 2.8 million. I don't know if you can explain the increase in cost for the SR 125 back office system before I continue.
Sure. Lucinda Bouchard will come and talk about the increase. So this is going to be the point.
Good afternoon, Lucinda Broussard, Director of Regional Transportation Services. The increase is due to postage and mailing costs. With the new system, we have to mail everything to people until they opt into paperless. So we're anticipating postage will go up. Actually, that in the budget, we're saying 16 cents over the year. I'm sorry, 16 cents over the year. I think we pay 72 or 74 cents now, 16 cents over the year times the number of people who are our customers that we need to mail statements to. Plus that 16 cents is where the increase is. And can I just, one more thing, Mario? And July 1st, postage actually goes up by 5 cents. So we're already eating into that 16 cents we're anticipating.
So
ahead, Mario.
One thing that I want to highlight, because this was a topic of conversation when we were looking at the budget, we had the same question. And it is a projection, and it's the worst case projection. And it's because we foresee moving sooner or later to the new back office system. And by law, we can't just keep assume that everybody will continue to be paperless. So by law, we need to send them everything by paper, by mail. And the team did is the worst case assumption that all our clients would almost opt to continue being on paper and not paperless. So we're building a budget for it, but most probably, or hopefully, knock on wood, we won't utilize that whole budget. But that was how the team at Lucinda's shop got to that projected number.
I completely understand. It's hard to ignore the burden that these costs, but the current costs and the current tolls keep placing on South Bay, specifically on Chula Vista. And, I just want to mention that this ongoing cost escalation only reinforces the urgency of retiring the SR 125. And I know I sound like a broken record, but yesterday I hardly ever used the 125 because I live closer to the 805 now. And it seems like every other time I use the 125, I have a problem with the toll. And poor Mario, I send him screenshots and location, and every time it happens, right? And I've been trying to pay the tolls online since yesterday and today. And Jared helped me because I didn't know if it was me. I checked my plates again, the credit card again, and I know this is a recurring issue that I'm able to voice because I sit on this table, but I know many other people in the South Bay are struggling with this. And I just want to reaffirm that my city wants to retire the toll as soon as possible. So thank you with that.
Thank you. First Vice Chair Luqadda.
All right. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, staff, for the presentation. I want to thank the public for participating, especially those from the Mid-City that came out and spoke. And it is a little inspiring to hear that there are, in fact, folks that are willing to sit on a bus for an hour or 2 hours if that's their only transportation option to get from where they are to where they want to go. So I appreciate that participation. And I found it a little bit ironic that the individual who called in spoke 2 minutes worth in 1 minute. I could barely understand what he was trying to say. If he had taken the full 2 minutes, it may have made more of an impact, but I appreciate Chair clarifying where we're at on that position. Josh, to your point, I'm a little concerned because you have an employee sitting next to you that only apparently gets joy 2 days a year. So I think you need to work on that.
We'll look into that right away.
But in all seriousness, I appreciate the good work that it takes to get into the budget. Thank you for taking the time to talk about the clarification of the youth opportunity passes. As we clean up the budget and move money around in different buckets, it can often get a little scary that you think you're losing a funding or a particular program. So thank you for clarifying that. And I appreciate the chair's comments. There's a lot of interest at the board level to figure out a way next cycle to ensure that we still have that funding or figure out how to get that funding for the youth opportunity passes. And also I appreciate the good work to find these stranded dollars in projects that have been finished and to make sure that we can move them into projects that need funding and make sure that we get them completed. And Mario, I appreciate the conversation that we had during the retreat that we're going to take a larger picture look at that when we have funding allocated to a project that we know we're not going to spend for 5 or 10 years because the planning or the pre-planning or the environmental is going to just take that long. There are so many projects that I know each of us are very eager to get done that are ripe to be done. And a project in a piece of paper doesn't do much for anybody, getting it done on the ground. And I appreciate the conversation. Mayor Wells, your constituents are much nicer than mine because they don't care where the money came from. It's taxpayer dollars, and we want to make sure we use it. I'll support bike projects all day long. I want to make sure they're very cost-effective implementation. That's what concerns me about some of the bike projects going forward. And I think SANDAG shifting to more of a local grant funding can be more strategic for our individual cities to figure out how we do that while still meeting our VMTs or greenhouse gas reduction challenges, and make sure that we don't have bike lanes to nowhere, because I know we've seen some place where, oh, a bike lane starts right now and oh, it's done. I don't know how that provides any safety to a bike rider. It's easy for me to complain about. It's harder on the ground, giving funding limitations, et cetera, but I'm very excited with that. And I think, yep, that completes my comments. Thank you, Chair.
Very good. Don't forget, I'm looking for a motion here somewhere too as well.
I'll move approval of the budget.
Okay, very good. Second by Chavez. Very good. Okay, Mayor Snow.
Thank you. In the legislative reports that we had received and that we were able to review at the executive committee stage today, there were two issues dealing with federal funding. We had significant amounts of grants that are still pending, so they haven't been awarded yet. But also in the reports that we received, it also indicated that there's a lot of efforts at the federal level to claw back money. And so existing grants are now under threat. Has that been incorporated into the budget? Have you looked at any of these that might be under attack? Having reviewed like where the particular areas that the federal government is attacking, in the legislative report, it identified DEI programs, immigration programs. And so we'll let you take it away.
So the grants that are in attachment 4 are the highest concern to us. It's around 122 million, and those are the ones that we have included that revenue in the capital budget, and in the budget we've included it as revenue. We are working with the federal partners, trying to go back and forth, respond to questions. Some of the projects are further along and we are having dialogue. Others, we're not sure if staff continues to exist in those programs. So, some are further along than others. Thus, on my end, some are more risky than others. But we were successful in getting our grant for the Otay Mesa East port of entry. So that shows some success. So I'm not completely discouraged. I think it's just going to be a process. Some of these funds may be delayed, and we'll just have to be working and being flexible. And so at this point, what my team is doing is we're looking at opportunities. We have a lot of contingency funds that we've kind of set aside. Right now in the capital program, we set aside, it's roughly our contingency right now is $170 million. So we're thinking about if that money doesn't come through, what else can we do to keep these projects that are ready to move forward to keep going ahead? So that's what we're trying to do, to be resilient, have communication, and have a contingency plan to keep the projects moving forward.
Mayor Snow, to add to that, in our recent trip to Washington, D.C. and meetings with DOT, DOT expressed, executives from DOT expressed their willingness to move forward with the majority of the grants that were pending. We were around 250, 260 million. Now it has reduced the number of the pending. But it seems, I can't tell you if it's high or low risk. If you ask my gut feeling, and based on the conversations, as things are flowing, and hopefully they'll flow appropriately, that all the indications and the conversation seems to be going there. The next big one that we're really putting a lot of effort, and it's more North County Transit that it's the recipient, but we're working with them, is the San Diego project, about 52 million. And that's where, like Susan says, we do have a plan B that we could come and propose to the board. But right now, we are really going hard in our engagements with the federal government. And there is a two-way communication going on. Example, Otay Mesa East, we were asked to take out the electrification for vehicles for the port of entry. So we did that. So that's the type of level which was nominal in the grant perspective. So I think we're going forward. Some people say, why are you really cutting the budget? Well, this is a snapshot of what we have today. Now, I want to remind a lot of people that, yes, the state is in a budget crisis, but the transportation funds are separate from the general funds. And the transportation bucket, it sometimes doesn't get that affected as the general funds. So we are tracking the May revise from the governor. But right now we're leaving it as what we see based on our best judgment and what we know eventually.
Okay, then that actually goes to some of the things that I was going to ask in my second part of it, just at the state level. So we had the opportunity to go up to Sacramento and talk to a number of our assembly members, many of whom sit on the budget committee, and they had given us pretty dire evaluations of what even the May revise and some of the hits we would be taking. And I had two different offices stress with no uncertain terms that if we are not using the money or if we're not moving forward on projects, they will be clawing back money. And so just to make sure that as we're prioritizing things, that we put these projects like at the front and like, let's get that money used and stuff before it's taken away from us.
And you will see from different project updates that will be coming up while we're moving forward, some of those announcements to companies to compete either for project management, construction management, design, or moving forward the projects itself. It's for that, use it or lose it.
All right, thank you.
Very good. Mindful of the time is 12:42. We have 4 more speakers. Councilmember Edson for NCTD.
Yes, NCTD appreciates the efforts to work with the federal government to secure the balance of grant funding that's necessary to complete these long needed and essential projects. So thank you very much for those efforts. But I also wanted to add, because of the comments from those who came out to speak today, as a longtime advocate for the YOP program, I understand and appreciate that YOP is fully funded through 2026. However, to continue YOP beyond FY 2026, NCTD will require a new long-term funding source. YOP has been a superpower for the youth of our region, allowing them to travel to school, to work, and to other activities. I fully support its continuation and appreciate the youth who continue to advocate for YOP. It's their program, right? That's why they're here in front of us. And sincerely hope that staff can do their magic and find funding to continue beyond 2026. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Sanchez.
Thank you very much. And just to add to the conversations about bike lanes in Oceanside and other places, especially where we're seeing the rise of bikes to school, bikes to work, we are having safety issues. We are having, kids being hit. And so bike lanes for us has become very, very important. And I appreciate the conversations that we've had about that, Mario, with you and your staff. And by the way, I wanted to start off by saying thank you very much to staff and to you for, because I started some of these conversations early, like, why is it that we run out of funds on projects that we say have been approved, right, by the SANDAG board, and where they're regional projects where, City of Oceanside ends up being the last jurisdiction to, like, for example, the HOV lanes. How can we make sure that those funds come in? So this whole idea about prioritizing has been, wonderful. And I understand some of it is by necessity because of funding the grants, but also I know these are issues for my colleagues here, and hoping that we all can work together towards ensuring that we complete the projects that we commit to and vote on. And for Oceanside, it's the HOV lanes through Oceanside and also the Coastal Rail Trail, which actually, in fact, became another public safety issue for us because our kids could use that for a safe route to school. We lost one child, And in his name, we've been trying to see how can we move this forward. But I do think that this is a really good, start and a basis for having additional dialogue. So we fully support the budget. And again, thank you to all. Thank you to the public comments, because of course this is a whole for the whole county of San Diego. Thank you.
Thank you. And before Mayor Jones closes us out, I will go to Councilmember Shin.
Hey, thanks for your presentation. This mostly goes to Josh. So out of all the things that we were discussing, this just seemed like to be quite a paramount issue. So do you feel like we've crested the issue of our retention rate and now we're headed towards a better direction?
I think we're definitely headed in a better direction, but I want us to be in a position where we are more in a driving position of that direction. So taking this opportunity to do the research, build the programs, and then start addressing the root causes of that attrition. I think now is our opportunity.
What's our tilt shift right now with the ratio between PEPRA and Classic members?
The PEPRA members are, the vast majority of our employees are newer employees, about 48% of them being hired in the last 3 years. So we do have a majority of employees that are PEPRA, but we also do hire new employees that are Classic. So it's a bit of a mix, but it is skewed towards the PEPRA.
Gotcha. And then so I was looking at our competitive or our salary ranges. How do we determine the competitiveness of that?
So on every few years, we do a compensation study, and we do want to also look at how we do that and the timing of it and the process. And we did one last year going into FY 2025 in that budget. And that's where we reset a good majority of our positions to align with the market. The market is, as you all know, like a stock market, and jobs move up and down based on supply and demand rather. So I think one of my goals is that we're able to do that in a consistent and timely manner to stay on top of things. If you fall behind the market, you have to pay to catch up. And so you want to be competitive, but then you're also subject to that market. So that's where we would like to be and make sure that we are.
Gotcha. I noticed that some seem competitive. It was fine, including with with our CalPERS, but then some looked under, especially in regards to our technical positions. Just seemed like if you were to go to the free market and compete with us, that retainment used to probably be easier with the Classic model and our CalPERS, but now it just seems like there's other benefits that can leap us away.
Yeah, that's definitely a factor, and that's something that we're watching to make sure that we're on top of.
Other thing I was looking at is, I'm a wholehearted believer that the moment you show up, and even if you're an intern, that one day you can become Mario in the position, right? I wouldn't want to do your job. I don't care what pay they would ever give me. My blood pressure meds are to the max, so would never go there. But anyways, when I was looking at the employee manual, it also stated that there's a usage of $5,250 per employee, so $5,250 annually per employee. I'm not going to ask the question for you to answer now, but I either encourage that our employees are using it or finding that budget for a means to be able to do something in-house like programming. So when I mentioned the thing in regards to the intern becoming a CEO one day, which is a great story to be told for any organization, that it requires us to be able to train them in regards to leadership. There's no way you can always see what the next steps are, and especially if the organization is going sour, because now you have nothing to base yourself off of. So that leadership training is just constant and unending, and I just hope that that's our culture and we budget for that. And then last but not least, this is just regards to how the budget goes for revenue. I think it's my opinion that for each of us in a city, we have to be economically, we have to ensure that our cities are economically vital and can compete against each other. So I hope I'm competing against Coronado and Lemon Grove and whatnot. And I hope you guys are doing the same, because if you think about it, our revenue is coming through sales tax. I don't want to increase the rate. I want all of us to be able to compete in volume so that our revenues can come in. Then we can in turn use this bucket of revenue for the projects that we need to do today. So that's all.
Thank you, Mayor Jones.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I just wanted to, I have a couple of comments. One being, I think our retention is actually going to improve because of the change in leadership. I think that's goes without saying. When it comes to bike lanes, I think specifically, and I think Vice Chair LaCava had mentioned this, that it's always good for us to figure out the best and least expensive way to provide those bike lanes. Like in my city, I don't want the cycle tracks. I don't want the candlesticks and the curbs. I know some people like them, but most of the very serious riders do not like them. They are dangerous. So I just want to make sure, and I've brought this up a few times, that we really need to look at our efforts when it comes to, those, they're very expensive. First of all, and I believe that in some cities, they're going to be removing them, like Encinitas. Sorry to use you as a poster child, but I know that sometimes we get these improvements in, we realize that they don't work, so we need to be very careful when we're funding them, because I do not like throwaway improvements. I think it's absolutely irresponsible of us, so I just want to make sure we're spending money wisely. Thank you.
Very good. All right, we have a motion by LaCava, second by Chavez. The motion is on the board. Please vote. Remember to use the 1, 2, or 3, not the 0. Oceanside. San Diego. LaCava. There it goes. Okay, very good. This concludes our meeting. The next Board of Directors meeting will be May 23rd at 9 a.m.